Hello again, it's Keaghan, and this video is the fourth video of 5 that I originally planned to do, focusing on the needs of your inner child. There's a playlist of these videos included in the description box below, as well as linked at the end of the video on the on-screen watch more options. You don't have to watch these in any particular order. You don't even have to watch them all, but just know that each video is focused on a different, specific, individual need of your inner child. I actually pulled all of the cards for these 5 readings all at once after taking time to meditate and set the intention that I would be able to connect with the inner child of everyone who would eventually watch these videos. And I have to tell you, with each video, that collective group feels bigger and bigger to me. I know that a lot of you like to see proof that the cards were randomly selected, so as I'm talking, I'm going to show the selection of the cards used in this particular reading sped up so that it only takes about 30 seconds of time. Several requests have been made in comments of the earlier videos about different topics to cover, as well as some requests to discuss this particular topic beyond just doing tarot readings. There was a request to do a video specifically to ways that you can reparent your inner child, and I've added those to my filming list and we'll work on them soon. Any video that is related to this topic will eventually be added to the Inner Child Tarot playlist, so be sure to subscribe and like that playlist so you can stay updated. For this particular video, I wanted to focus on what your inner child needs in order to truly feel loved. I'll read these cards left to right as the cards are grouped, starting with the first card out, the King of Wands reversed, which represents the current energetic state of your inner child. Doing this series has been an interesting journey for me as a reader. I have to try to interpret the cards that are here as if these messages are coming through to me from a child. So the traditional energy of this card, not yet being ready to lead, not being able or willing to be responsible for taking yourself forward to where you know you're being called, or having unrealistic expectations placed on you, all of this comes through for me in a very different manner than if I were focusing on the energy of an adult. Here, rather than feeling like immaturity is holding someone back, this feels like an oppressive sense of responsibility, which is far beyond the skills of your inner child. There's so much fear energy emanating from this card. It's not someone who needs to realize that the time has arrived to step up. This is a child who is desperate for someone to come along and take care of things because they know they're in over their head. I think that this card really represents very clearly where your inner child is feeling the most neglected and unloved. So much has been thrust upon them that there's no real way for them to really be successful at anything. It feels like survival is their constant thought and focus. Even though I'm connecting with your inner child right now, I'm also connecting with you, just a very specific part of you and your history. Energetically, when I try to tune into the connection between you and your inner child, it feels very strained and a little negative. There's anger and resentment coming towards you from the inner child because they feel like everything is being piled onto them, that there's constant blame and nothing that they do is good enough. And while I sense that you might have actually felt that way when you were a child, there's an interesting complexity to the energy here. I feel that when you look at your childhood, you tend to reflect back with kind of a sense of looking at it through an extreme. So some of you might think back on your childhood and believe that your childhood was actually much happier and much more stable than it truly was. You might look back through that rose-colored glasses sort of filter and make it all seem better than it was. But if you're doing that, your inner child feels very unsupported because they actually do have the connection to how things really were. Others that are listening might look back at your childhood and the way that you view it as, that extreme way of viewing it that I'm picking up on, is that your childhood might be the reason you use to explain why everything in your life goes wrong and nothing goes the way that you want it to. But that sort of look back at your childhood makes your inner child feel like they are actually the source of your unhappiness because they are energetically rooted in that past that you look back on with so much anger and resentment. So, what's needed here is for you, the current version of you, to really take the lead on healing. You have to understand that just like you wouldn't look at a kid who's having a rough childhood today and say something to them like, you're never going to recover from this, kiddo. You can't keep yourself from healing and moving on from the events of your childhood by being obsessively fixated on all the ways you were wronged as a child. And that doesn't mean that you weren't wronged. You were. I can sense that. I even said earlier, some of you might be a bit in denial yourself about how wronged you were in your childhood. But what's important for you is that you can learn, you can teach yourself, you can study and learn how to detach yourself from the energy of the past and allow yourself to become more distanced from what happened and instead connect more to who you were when things happened. If you can connect to that energy, that is the easiest way to connect to your inner child, because who you were during your childhood is who your inner child is today. And once you are connected to them, it's time to tell them that you've come to take over and they can finally stop fighting to just keep themselves safe. Not only will you keep them safe, but you'll work to ensure that their future is a happy one. Having someone show up for them in that way will allow your inner child to feel as if they actually matter and someone loves them enough to take care of them. I think these groups of cards in the middle here really highlight three distinct areas where your inner child is expressing clear, specific needs. The last card on the far right seems to be where they long to be, in contrast to the energy of their reality that we just discussed. So let's talk about this Temperance 10 of Cups combo. This speaks to wanting stability, security, balance, harmony, in place of the unpredictability and chaos that they tend to be used to having. There's additional energy coming through of wanting desperately to establish some sort of solid, reliable connection or relationship that provides relief for them from feeling lonely and unwanted. But I want you to think about this for a minute. Your inner child is constantly seeking a connection, but the only connection they can really have now is internally with you. So from the perspective of the inner child, they don't have a connection with you, or the one that they do have doesn't feel good to them for some reason, because this inner child part of you is not fully connected, or it's not fully well understood. And because of that, you aren't really aware that it needs you or that it needs your attention. And because of that, the fears and needs of this inner child part are, in a way, sending out energetic pulses telling the universe that you are not able to form connections or have stable relationships or maintain the bonds that you have that really matter to you. Because this inner child is, after all, a part of you. The Temperance card then takes on an added significance here, because this is really about needing to create harmony between the adult you and the inner child part of you. This is only possible if you can eventually win the trust of your inner child, so they will fully give you control of your own energy. But until that happens, they will stay separate from you, not fully integrated, and therefore not really under your control. And if you are not controlling that part of you, then that part of you energetically, it's in control of itself. And based on the earlier energy that opened this reading, the inner child is not really capable of controlling the things which still remain assigned to it. The tricky part here is that you can't demand control or try to take it by force. The only way you can accomplish getting control of that portion of your soul energy is by earning it. The inner child must hand it over willingly, at peace with focusing on being a happy, thriving child, entrusting you, the adult parent, with their care and their safety. So building this connection, being consistent and reliable, and focusing on meeting the needs of your inner child is really vital to making them feel loved. And feeling loved is the key to earning their trust. This card combo of Hanged Man and Magician, both upright, is very powerful spiritual communication for you. The Hanged Man is connected with timing and perspective. I sense that those who watch this reading and are listening to me right now will feel like they've had a veil lifted, suddenly aware of what they've been missing in their journey to heal and ascend upward into higher vibrational energy. You might even feel like this work with your inner child needs to be your top priority for the foreseeable future until you have the breakthrough that's needed. You can sense that unraveling this complex connection between you and your inner child allows you to free yourself from being stuck and really gain traction and momentum on a lot of things you've been struggling to manifest into your life. I also feel energy here of things starting to make sense. Not only an understanding of how the events and experiences of your childhood created aspects of your identity, which might not be useful or needed anymore, but additionally, some of you are realizing that recent events are just starting to make more sense to you. You were being led to this moment of realization of how much your inner child has actually been limiting you. To be honest, this feels like a need that your inner child has more than something that, if accomplished, lets them feel loved. Remember earlier in this reading, I mentioned that the inner child internalizes your unhappiness as an adult. So when you look at your present life and then tune in energetically to anger and sadness and fear about your past life, your inner child feels that energy because they still exist there in the past. You finding a way to free yourself from the past and heal your connection with the younger version of you ensures that your inner child feels loved and that they feel safe. Because in a way, what has to happen here is that you quite literally have to learn to love yourself, both the younger and the present version. When I said earlier that this energy doesn't necessarily feel like a need that your inner child has inside of them, I want to try to explain that a little bit more deeply. You becoming aware of this dynamic that's existing energetically, it breaks this habit that I'm picking up on of having unresolved anger and hostility and trauma that's deeply connected to your childhood. I want you to imagine energy flowing back and forth between the younger version of you and the older version of you. When you think back to your past, what are you sending energetically backwards into that time period? Because your inner child senses that. They sense it because it's directed at them. Because for them, they are still a child. They're still in the energy and in the trauma that you experienced during your childhood. I'll probably talk about this a little bit more in depth because it keeps coming up. It keeps presenting itself for me energetically as being the most important thing for you to hear. So this isn't necessarily a need of your inner child, but this is something that if you can focus on in your current life and really think about the spiritual message that's coming through, addressing that will allow your inner child to feel loved rather than feeling anger directed towards them. We've already had 3 major arcana cards in this middle section of the reading, and with the Hermit showing up reversed here, we have our 4th. So that's a lot of really intense energy to be dealing with. The Two of Cups upright accompanies here, and it's the last card in this section. At its core, this energy can best be explained as your inner child no longer wanting to feel isolated and alone. Again, there is intense yearning for a connection. And I said this earlier, but it's coming through again, so I have to say it again. Your inner child only has the potential for connection with you. While you can form connections with lots of other people, you are quite literally your inner child's entire future come to life. You are, therefore, in a way, their entire world. But don't be overwhelmed by that. For the inner child, as soon as they are aware of you and eventually learn to trust you, you also become the source of their peace. Because if you are happy and thriving, then they sense that their future is one which they can look forward to. It allows them to just exist in their perpetual childhood, feeling comfortable and not fearing what their future might hold. So your responsibility here is really only around doing everything you can to make sure that you are happy and thriving. And that should honestly be a responsibility you always embrace and take seriously. I love that the Two of Cups is here because that card always speaks to an exchange of love between two people. And in this case, it's more about the two parts of the same person, separated only by the distance of time. But these two parts are forever bonded energetically. And I think that this Two of Cups, along with the next card on the table, means that you do have success here as long as you put in the effort. There is a lot of potential healing that can occur. So as I mentioned in this spread, the last card on the table represents what your inner child wants their reality to be, in contrast to the first card, which gave insight into their current energetic reality. And the Nine of Cups is all about having happiness and contentment in the life that you're living. This is getting everything that you've ever wanted and feeling so blessed and grateful for all of it. This is the innocent, naive request from your inner child to have all of their wishes and dreams come true. And as we get older, we realize that sometimes we might wish and dream of things that actually aren't that good for us. And that means that we sometimes find ourselves protected when we don't get exactly what we wanted. But your inner child doesn't need to understand that complexity. They gauge the likelihood that they are having that dream life by what they sense from you coming back energetically towards them from the future. As they daydream and imagine what life might have in store for them, they are actually tuning into you. They are energetically pinging you to see what they feel like when they're grown up. And what you say about yourself today in the present, how you treat yourself, how the people around you treat you. All of those things flow backward energetically. And to the inner child, they connect to it intuitively, sensing that the future is either going to be good or bad. You can also think of your inner child as the energetic signal of the child version of you. Think of this as a child literally at a point in time, sending out energy from the past into the future. And then imagine the inner child inside of you echoing backwards like a ripple behind you as you move further and further away from that past part of your lifetime. That connection between you always exists energetically from the past and the future. It's only when you become aware of that connection mentally, emotionally, and spiritually that you're able to truly impact and influence that past energy. As you work in the present to ensure that your future gets better and better, the energy you send backward through time becomes higher vibration. And as sci-fi as this might sound, it actually does raise the energy that's available to past versions of you. Think about this. In times where you felt in the past that you didn't understand why, but you just knew that things would get better, that you needed to just keep trying and not give up. Times when you found the strength to walk away from something when you needed to, or to finally figure out how to release trauma and have healing for your soul. Those moments came to you because some future version of you was sending energy back, letting you know that it did actually get better. I should do a whole video specific to this, because the way that we think about time and the way that we think about energy, we often don't think about it in the right way. And you can actually shift energy from your past because time is not linear. Right now, as I'm talking, there is a version of you who is a child. There is a version of you who is present listening to me. There's a version of you who is an old person nearing the end of their life. And all of those versions of you exist energetically at the same time. When I do what I do, I'm looking at energy signals of you that are younger, older. That's how I'm able to tell people, this is what I sense about your childhood. This is what I see coming for you in the future. It's because all of those versions of you are now. But you are in the present because we travel through our experience in a linear fashion, which is governed by time. So what I want you to know is that the most important thing you can do for your inner child is to do what you can do now to make yourself happy. Do what you can do now to ensure that your experiences that are approaching you, the future that you're connecting to, is a good one, that it's a happy one, and that it allows you to really, truly, honestly thrive and to release anything that you are still bound to regarding the past that is heavy or painful or sad. I want you to know that the energy of that future version of you that is happy and that is healed, that energy is what led you to this video. It's the future version of you that's living the life you're dreaming about today. And that's true as well for the version of you that is a future version of the past child version of you. I really hope that that makes sense. I know it's a convoluted, kind of out there way of thinking about things, but it is actually how it all works. So that wraps up this video. I think that's a good place to end this. I do want to just say thank you to those who have already supported this series. I've actually been shown by my own spirit guides that this series is something that I'm creating now that will have a bigger future purpose. So I know that there are lots of people still to arrive for these messages. That's happened already a few times on this channel, and I'm starting to see a pattern now. There are times that I've done videos that I felt were going to be really big in terms of the energy I felt I was connecting to, but I didn't actually have those big views happen until months or even a full year later. This series feels the same way to me, that there are so many of you still yet to come. But regardless, hello to you whenever you do discover this video. It's been an honor and honestly a bit of a personal blessing to me to do these readings. I've definitely been through this journey with my own inner child, and because of that, so much of the guidance in these readings feels deeply personally familiar to me. There have been so many beautiful messages that have come through, and I'm really grateful to be involved in your life, whether this is the last time we interact or if you decide to become a consistent part of my own journey and hang out with me in each video that I publish. And if you think you're part of that second group, don't forget to click on subscribe so you know when I've posted new content. I love hearing from you all, so please take a moment to leave me a comment. I read all of my comments, and be on the lookout for the last video in this series for now, which will focus on what your inner child needs in order to feel trust. There are some videos on the screen now. If you want me to keep you company for just a little bit longer, just click on one and I'll be right there. But if not, I'll see you again soon in the next video. Bye.